In this lecture video, we're going to learn how to calculate odds in favor and odds against. We will also talk about the relationship between odds and probability. Let's begin with this example of rolling two dice. We need to find the odds of rolling a 6. When you see the phrase, find the odds of rolling a 6, that's the same as finding the odds in favor of rolling a 6. And here's how we calculate the odds in favor of an event. For an event E, the odds in favor of that event happening is the ratio of the number of ways that that event can happen, or the number of favorable events, to the number of ways that that event does not occur, or unfavorable events. So to calculate the odds in favor of rolling a 6, we need to find the ratio of the number of ways we can roll a 6 to the number of ways to not roll a 6. Let's take a look at the sample space for rolling two dice. Here are all of the options for rolling two dice. Rolling a 6 means that we want the dots on the two dice to add up to a 6. The options are to have the first die be a 1 and the second a 5, have the first be a 2 and the second a 4, have both dice land on a 3, have the first be a 4 and the second a 2, or have the first be a 5 and the second a 1. So we see that there's 5 different ways to roll a 6 out of 36 total options. That means that the numerator of our ratio is 5. There's 5 different ways to roll a 6. And with 36 total options, that leaves 31 ways to not roll a 6. So the odds in favor of rolling a 6 are 5 to 31. Now let's find the odds of rolling a double. This time when we set up the ratio, the numerator will be the number of ways to roll a double, and the denominator will be the number of ways to not roll a double. Let's take another look at our sample space. A double means that the two dice land with the same number of dots up. So our options are to roll a 1-1, a 2-2, 3-3, 4-4, 5-5, and 6-6. So there's 6 different ways to roll a double. With 6 different ways to roll a double in the numerator and 36 total options, this leaves 30 ways to not roll a double. Reducing this fraction, we find that the odds in favor of rolling a double are 1 in 5. Let's look at a few more examples. This time, let's find the odds in favor of rolling more than a 5. Looking at our sample space, we can divide all of our outcomes into two groups, less than or equal to 5 and more than 5. Counting, we find that there are 26 ways to roll more than a 5 and 10 ways to roll less than or equal to 5. So let's set up the ratio. The numerator will be the number of ways to roll more than a 5, and the denominator will be the number of ways to roll less than or equal to 5. Looking at our sample space, we found that there were 26 ways to roll greater than 5. And out of 36 options, this leaves 10 ways to roll less than or equal to 5. Reducing this fraction, we find that the odds in favor of rolling more than a 5 are 13 to 5. Now let's look at a slightly different example. What are the odds against rolling a 7? Notice that this time, instead of calculating the odds in favor of rolling a 7, we want to calculate the odds against rolling a 7. To calculate the odds against an event E occurring, we need the ratio of the number of ways that that event cannot occur, which we can consider the unfavorable events, to the number of ways that event E can occur, or the favorable events. This means that we want the reciprocal ratio of when we calculated odds in favor of. So to calculate the odds against rolling a 7, we need the ratio with the numerator, the number of ways to not roll a 7. And the denominator will be the number of ways to roll a 7. Let's take one more look at our sample space. We find that there are 6 outcomes in which the dots on the two dice add up to 7. So there are 6 ways to roll a 7. So with 6 ways to roll a 7 and 36 total possibilities, this leaves 30 ways to not roll a 7. So the odds against rolling a 7 are 5 to 1. Now let's look at the relationship between odds and probability. Suppose the odds in favor of Paula scoring a goal in the next soccer game are 4 to 5. What is the probability of Paula scoring a goal in the next game? Notice that we are given the odds in favor of Paula scoring a goal, and we're asked to find the probability of Paula scoring a goal. With the value of the odds in favor being 4 to 5, we know that the 4 represents the number of favorable outcomes, which in this case is scoring a goal, and the 5 represents the number of unfavorable outcomes, which in this case would be not scoring a goal. To calculate the probability of scoring a goal, we need the number of ways this is possible, or the number of ways to score a goal, divided by the number of total possibilities. We already know that the number of ways to score a goal is 4, and we can find the number of total possible by adding together the number of ways to score a goal and the number of ways to not score a goal. So to calculate the probability, our denominator is 9. This translates the odds in favor of scoring a goal being 4 to 5 to the probability of scoring a goal being 4 over 9, or approximately equal to 0.4444. Now let's look at a different example. Suppose the probability of winning a raffle is 0.375. What are the odds in favor of winning this raffle? Notice at this time we are given the probability of winning the raffle, and we are asked to find the odds in favor of winning the raffle. We have that the probability of winning is equal to 0.375, which we could rewrite as 375 out of 1,000. Reducing this fraction, we can divide 375 and 1,000 by 125 and have a fraction in simplest terms of 3 over 8. Now with probability, the numerator represents the number of ways to win, and the denominator represents the total possibilities. In order to calculate the odds in favor of winning, we need the number of ways to win and the number of ways to lose. If there are 8 total possibilities and 3 of those are ways to win, then that leaves us with 8 minus 3, or 5 ways to lose. Now we can calculate the odds in favor of winning. The numerator is the number of ways to win, and the denominator is the number of ways to lose. This gives us the ratio of 3 to 5. So the odds in favor of winning this raffle are 3 to 5. That concludes this lecture video on how to calculate odds in favor of and odds against an event happening. And we also looked at the relationship between probability and odds.